Welcome to the Live Alone podcast, the podcast where two nerds who consume a whole lot of horror discuss their favorite pieces of horror media. From movies and TV shows to video games, novels, and everything in between. Because this is a spooky world, and we're just thriving in it. I'm your host, Sarah, the survivalist in your slasher friend group that will put up a lasting fight, but inevitably die because only the final girl can survive.
And I'm your host, Ian, the fearless fighter in your slasher friend group that tries to save the day but ends up dying because physical strength just doesn't win in horror.
In today's episode, we're talking about one of our favorite horror, thriller, sci-fi movies that is completely underground. It's a movie we've never heard anyone else talk about, and we're not too sure why, honestly, because it's absolutely unhinged. It's wild, and it's a complete mindfuck. We're going to be talking about Coherence. This movie is actually from 2013. I didn't realize it's that old now. It's 10 years old. Basically, what Coherence is about is 8 friends at a dinner party experience a troubling chain of events due to a malevolent influence of a passing comet. Yeah, that's pretty much what it's all about. That's pretty much it. It's very straightforward. Yeah, there's like a passing comet. It's the Miller's Comet. And strange shit goes down, and it's super strange, and the whole movie is just one string of events that happen as the comet is passing over this town where these 8 friends are having a dinner party.
I mean, it's not a horror, but there's horrifying things that happen.
I feel like, yeah, that's part of the main discussion that I wrote down in our notes, that there's horrifying elements to it. So I think it counts, at least for us, because it sticks with us in a way that kind of like horror does. I also wrote in the notes a little bit about the word coherence, because I think when we were watching the movie, we don't really get what coherence is. And then when we were rewatching it for like the 100th time for this show, we noticed that coherence is actually mentioned in the movie, and specifically decoherence is mentioned in the movie. So I just want to put it right at the beginning of the show what decoherence means. So quantum decoherence is the loss of quantum coherence. So it's basically like the opposite of coherence. And it's the process in which a system's behavior changes from that which can be explained by quantum mechanics to that which can be explained by classical mechanics. So basically, to make that sound simpler, it's quantum coherence is like a system where everything kind of goes the way that it goes. It's just the routine of the way that it goes. And quantum decoherence is the loss of that. So AKA shit gets turned upside down is essentially what's going on in this movie, and it's completely accurate. And I think the definition of that is important before we start talking about it, because it's going to get confusing when we talk about it. There's a lot of timelines that go on in this movie, so I just wanted to get that out there. But before we get into the main conversation, we're going to kick things off with a game, as always. And this time, we're going to play a round of trivia. Okay. After hours, creeping it real. So I have a handful of trivia questions for you, Ian, and these are pretty interesting. I hope you did not cheat and look up a lot of trivia, and if you did, I hope you forgot.
Whips.
So let's start with question number 1. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, we have an easy one at the start. It's a true or false. True or false, one of the friends is also the co-writer of the movie.
True.
Yep, you're right. Do you know which friend?
Is it Amir?
It is Amir. Did you know that?
No, I did. I just guessed it because he seems like the type of guy to do it.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because of course, he's an actor who plays Amir. He's also the co-writer, and he's essentially the quote-unquote mole who helped guide scenes if actors went astray, which is...
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It kind of makes sense because his character is very much that vibe.
Wow,
but
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's cool, right? Yeah. Okay. So, true or false, that for number 2, true or false, the actors did not receive a script for the entire movie.
True.
You're right. I kind of hinted at it there from question number 1, but they did not receive a script at all. Instead of scripts, the actors received a small paragraph as their goals for the day, and they would basically improvise from their little paragraph of goals. So the whole movie is
that's
improvised.
pretty cool. They should do that more often. It was really spontaneous, and it worked out.
It really flowed. It flowed really well. So that was a good idea on the writer's part, or the director's part.
Because then they acted surprised whenever something happened.
Yeah, like legitimately surprised.
Like
Very cool. Okay, now we're out of the true or false question, so now it's going to get a little bit trickier. Number 3, how long did it take to film the movie in its entirety?
1 day.
No. It took 5 days. And there's an interesting story with the 5 days. So basically the director wanted to use his own house for the setting of the movie. However, his wife was 8.5 months pregnant at the time, and she wanted to have her birth at home. So she said, as long as you can get this movie done within 5 days, you can do the movie.
That was a nice house.
It is a nice house. Question number 4. What was the director's favorite scene? And I know this is hard because it's a whole movie. I'll give you a hint. It is also one of our favorite scenes, and we rewatched this recently, so it should be fresh in your head.
When Emily was looking at Kevin in his face and just stared at him, and we were like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. That is the director's favorite scene, and it's actually Em, who is played by Emily. That's also her favorite scene.
Yeah, because it's like...
It was freaky.
It was, yeah, but you don't even know who he was, though.
It was the scariest part of the whole movie.
Was he red? Was he green?
And the last question, which actor was afraid of improvising?
Was it Mike?
It was not Mike.
All right, was it? It was
just one more guess.
It was Hugh.
It was not Hugh. It was Kevin.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I got it.
There's no other context about it. It just says that Kevin was terrified about improvising. I guess
But he did good, though.
Let's get into the main discussion here. So why did we pick this piece of content? It's actually funny. We came across this movie very, very offhanded. We had a mutual friend who was like, hey, have you seen Coherence? And we were both like, no. And he was just like, yeah, you should check it out. It's pretty cool. And he didn't say anything else after that. He never had a conversation with us about the movie. He just gave us the recommendation, and that was pretty much it. And then after we watched it together, we were like, what the hell? This movie is wild. It's such a good movie. Again, we've never heard anyone else talk about it. I've never seen it online either.
It's like an everyday situation, average situation. It's nothing, no like crazy like sci-fi graphics and any of that. It's just like it could just be a regular thing that happens to somebody.
Yeah, totally. We talked about the fact that there's this comet that's passing and 8 friends are having a dinner party, and then strange shit happens. So essentially what's happening is that there's this massive puzzle piece that's going on, and it has to do with quantum physics. It has to do with, I would say, perhaps time travel, or when you're watching it, it feels like time travel, but I think the actual root of it is quantum physics in the way that the movie kind of explains it, because there is a little bit of an explanation scene. But essentially, weird shit goes on with these specific 8 friends having the dinner party, where there becomes alternate versions of this same dinner party that is happening with the 8 friends, and just every version of it, every alternative version to it, is slightly different, and it just gets a little bit more diabolical. It gets a little bit more scary, creepy. They start crossing paths, and that's what makes it even creepier. And then it just becomes a bit more of a puzzle every single time they cross paths with a different version of themselves. So I hope that explains the puzzling part of this, because it's going to be hard for us to have a conversation about the different pieces if we don't explain the fact that it's so fucking weird to begin with.
The way that they did the movie, it was so easy. You didn't lose track of the characters. Like, so there's multiple characters, 8 people in this house, and you get the little bit of the character development, and then you find out what's going on with each person. Like, you know, each character is different.
Yeah, totally.
And you could actually keep track of what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like when we first watched the movie, perhaps we were just so, like, our minds were blown at the fact that all of these realities were going on, so we didn't get it the first time around. But when we rewatched it for this episode, it kind of was much more clear. I think if you are savvy with these kinds of timelines, you will get it from the get-go. It's not that hard to follow along, but at the same time, it is puzzling enough where you're super intrigued to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, so I would definitely watch it more than once.
Yeah, I would definitely watch it more than once. The first time to get, like, your first gut reactions, and then the second time to be like, okay, what's actually happening here?
We saw it yesterday, we were just pausing it, and I was like, wait a second, so right now this and this is happening. But
yeah.
I like movies like that because you get engaged.
Yeah, totally. And I just want to also say, because when you look this movie up, if you end up watching it, and we do recommend you watch it, you're going to see that it's not specifically in the horror genre, but we mentioned this in the intro. It's super realistic. The characters, the actors, actresses, they're all improvising. So it feels very, very real. It feels like you're watching a whole movie almost. And that's how realistic it is. And what's actually going on when you think about, like, alternate versions of you and alternate versions of your past, your present, your future is happening in front of you, and you're seeing yourself and your peers around you. That's scary. And the fact that it's super realistic and you feel like perhaps this could actually happen. So I have several moments where I'm like, maybe this could happen to me. That's scary. And to me, I think that falls under the horror genre because it kind of like shakes you to the core. It freaks you out in that way.
We keep saying sci-fi probably because of the Comet, but
I feel like it's sci-fi because the whole root of the story is quantum physics, right? So you have to kind of say it's sci-fi. But at the same time, it didn't lean into the science fiction. It leaned into the terror that happens when you put a group of friends together that are kind of problematic when they're together, and all of the horror that happens when alternate versions kind of like cross. Why do we like it so much? I feel like you're dying when you're watching this movie. You're hooked from the very beginning. You mentioned my brother. We put it on and I think maybe he wasn't really interested at first, but then suddenly out of nowhere he got hooked. And what's really great about this movie is that you get hooked into it because you want to know what happens by the end of it. There's so many dramatic things going on and you're just like, what's gonna happen to these people? Who's the main character, really? Which we know who the main character is. The main character is M. But you want to know what's gonna happen to them as a group, but you also want to know what happens to her as the main character. You're just dying to know, or at least I was.
Yeah, and then like the amount of shit that's going around, you're just like, what's going on?
There's so many things.
For your brothers to just go there and just start watching it, like you could tell it was a great movie. Like you said, it's not just a horror genre. Like anybody will just sit down and be like, what the hell's going on over here? Yeah, that's true. A lot of people are turned off by the horror genre. So if you're like one of those horror newbies and you're not too sure if you can get into like the spooky stuff, this is like a good entryway movie. And you know what else? Like you know when you watch a movie and like something happens and then you're like one thing happens and then you're like trying to fix it. Like you as the viewer is trying to fix it. Yeah. For that one problem, and then you have like the anxiety, like you need to fix this thing. Yeah. It's so much shit going on at the same time. You're just like, all right, let it fix itself, or like, why don't you do this? You can fix it easier if you just do this. You know what I mean? Like you're in the movie. Yeah, you get so involved. So I did also want to mention there are some like key clues when it comes to the timelines. There are a bunch of little methods that the characters use in order to keep track of the different versions of the timeline. So we have glow sticks. And there's different color glow sticks. So that's like one form of being able to track the different alternate realities. Then we have pictures with color-coded numbers, which gets wild because they make like this super chance roll a dice kind of system to add the numbers to the pictures. We have some characters' phones cracking. Then we have repeated actions of the friends. So like the behavior of the friends, some of them are just destined to do the same thing over and over and over again. We have the one character that's bound to like be the cheater. There's one friend that's bound to be a little bit more of the fighter, aggressive type or the passive type, things like that. So there's repeated actions coming from those friends. Then we have deliberate actions that are happening. So there's some characters that are taking items from the other versions of themselves in order to manipulate the situation and win, quote unquote, in all of the realities. Because at the end of the day, or at the end of the movie, once the comet passes, theoretically, all of this is going to just go away. And the superior version is going to prevail. That's at least what the friends are thinking. So they're kind of manipulating their other versions to make sure that they get on top and they are going to be the ones to survive this passing of the comet. There's also like not deliberate kind of action. So there's two characters that stay in the house. They remain in the house all the time. So they kind of are the rooted characters and they do things inside of the house that kind of change the dynamic of the house once the other characters that are moving about the different versions and realities, and then they kind of like influence it based off of them stagnantly staying in the house doing whatever they're doing. For example, like these two characters that always stay in the house, in one version they may be taking drugs, in another version they may just be sitting around doing absolutely nothing, having cake, stuff like that. The thing that's good and you gotta learn from watching the movie is when one person does one thing or in that one group, the time changes. So that's how people are able to like go jump from. It's I don't know. It's not time travel. If you do something in one reality, you're gonna be doing something else later. Yeah. So that's how they're able to see like in one reality after when they're all talking in a group in the house and they go over to the other house, they're still talking. So it's like it's not the timeline is not matching up because whatever you do now is gonna affect the time later. Yeah, that's so true. The way that I was looking at it, like,
I didn't realize that. I didn't piece those things together. Like, your actions are going to ripple effect into a different action, and that's going to happen later. And we know that we, as in the friends, are going to know that. So they know to kind of manipulate the situation, given the fact that they know that there are alternate realities. But I kept thinking it was time travel because there would be some versions that nothing happened yet. And then there would be some versions where so many things happened that you don't even realize how did they even get there. But I guess it depends on the perspective that you're looking at it. Like, are you looking at it from the point where this particular friend did something and now we're just waiting to see the ripple effect? Or did that person already do something and we're seeing the ripple effect?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And also, it was like, there's so many different timelines. You would think, like, how many glow sticks were there? Like 4 boxes? There wasn't 4 timelines. There was many.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to be just 4 timelines. 4 timelines as in, like, there are 4 sets of glow sticks with different colors. I think it's green, red, yellow, and blue. But I do remember a scene last night when we were watching it. Somebody did math on their calculator, and they realized that if you did all of the calculations, there are over 5 million realities that are happening at that same moment where these friends are having the dinner party. So that also is super terrifying, because if you are trying to manipulate a situation and you think, oh, there's just 4 versions of this, and then you find out that there's 5 million, that makes you feel like this is hopeless.
And it was though.
It kind of was. I feel like we see the main character get to a point where we're like, okay, she prevailed. She manipulated the situation and she got what she wanted. But then the movie ends on a cliffhanger almost, where you're like, wait, did she do anything? Or what happened?
She fucked herself.
It was so strange. Another thing that we really love about it, and the fact that it kind of seems like horrific in the horror genre to us, is that this mystery of the Miller's Comet is scary. It's super fascinating and it's puzzling. And again, it's rooted in realism. Like, I don't know if the Miller's Comet is a true factual thing.
It's not. I looked. It's not. It's fake.
Oh, that's so interesting.
The name, the Miller's Comet is fake, but the thing that happened, we don't know.
Interesting.
In 1923.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, even if it was or if it wasn't, the passing of a comet over Earth is something that could happen, of course. And what happens on Earth when a comet is passing could very well be something wild like this. We just don't know, right? It's not documented in like real life, but the fact that perhaps it could be something that happens in real life, that's super scary. And I feel like you were doing some research while we were watching the movie. You know, comets have passed over Earth and weird things have happened, such as like...
Hold on, I got it right here.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So it says in 1923, a comet passed very close to Earth, very close to a town in Finland, which caused disorientation in people. Some were lost and never returned home. Others temporarily lost their memory.
Oh my god.
That's when you type in the Miller's Comet.
So it's a real comet.
It's not a real comet. It's a comet that they call the Miller's Comet in the movie, but it's based on, I would say it's based on this one.
On that.
Yeah, what happened in 1923 in Finland. They even mentioned it in the movie.
We were talking about this with Scream. Like, the situation with Scream, it was rooted in something true. It was the Gainesville serial killer. And so that's what makes it super scary, is that, like, this could happen in real life. And this movie is super, super supernatural, paranormal. So it makes it a lot scarier because it's an unknown area for most people. Most people are skeptics, or a lot of people are skeptics when it comes to things like this. So for it to be a potential real thing makes it super, super scary.
And you know what also? When they had, I mean, I'm not realizing it, they had to have doubles, like body doubles to act as them, and you did not notice that at all.
Yeah, you're right. When I was doing research, I saw that there were extras, and you could kind of tell who the extras were for. Yeah.
Like they did it, like the way that he did it.
It's so natural.
Yeah, you can't even tell if it's a low budget movie. It's high quality.
Low budget movie, done in 5 days. Almost rushed at this point.
Great acting,
acting was great.
Yeah, you put on one of those independent shit movies, or like
sometimes you feel like you're watching a YouTube video. Not to bash on YouTube, but sometimes the acting is just not there.
Yeah. And you put on this movie, and it's like great acting. Like they're acting like they're having a party. Because you know why? I think it's because they're improvising. But even to improvise, you got to be a great actor.
You have to be. Yeah, totally. It was wild. I still don't understand how people have not been talking about this movie.
It's a great movie.
Totally.
I said it many times over and over again. It's
Yeah.
a great movie. You have to watch it.
Yeah, definitely underrated. But let's briefly talk about each of the characters. Bonus points for us if we talk about if we particularly like the characters. So let's start with M. M is the main character, and she's also the partner to one other character who's Kevin.
At first, I did like M, but then later on in the movie, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And you could see that she is the main character. And she was just cared about herself at that point. Like, you were just like, you only care about yourself. You don't care about what you're doing to the timeline. And in the end, it bites in her ass.
She starts off as kind of the pure innocent character here. Like, she has the ethics and the morals and stuff like that, so she wouldn't do anything bad.
I think she was the smartest one too, right? She
was definitely.
She figured out the whole situation was going on.
She was doing all of the different tracking. Well, not all of the tracking, but she did the pictures, she did the color coding, she did the dice, she did a lot of different methodology type things, and she had her head on the entire time. She didn't really like lose her shit, and so maybe that was why she was able to manipulate the situation so well. But by the end of it, all of her morals and ethics are gone out the window, and she's like, I'm going to go after what I want for my benefit, screw everything else, even screw myself, my alternate version of myself. I'm gonna prevail. And so she literally goes into an alternate reality, and she gets rid of herself, who hasn't even been phased by any of these versions, because she went into a version where nothing had happened yet, and she just like gets rid of herself to replace herself. So like her ethics have just completely gone out the window, which is wild. I like her. I mean, kudos to you if you can manipulate the situation and succeed, but I don't think she actually succeeded, because at the end of the movie it kind of is implied that both versions of her are still existing after the comet passes.
Yeah, so what's gonna happen?
That was weird.
Yeah, that's what they have to do a part 2 of this movie. I don't know why it's taking so long. I don't know why it's taking so long.
They could keep it mysterious.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin. Kevin is M's boyfriend.
I mean, I like this character, but you get to see like the different sides of them, what he's thinking. He acted like every other regular guy who's like, oh, I'm gonna go outside and take care of this. Like, he was trying to be protective also.
I think he was supposed to be seen as like the good guy in the group of guys, but
he probably was a good guy. He really didn't do anything wrong.
I think he was a bit of an asshole.
Oh yeah, he was an asshole in that one reality when his ex kissed him, but he pushed her away. He didn't.
Well, there was another version where he was not interested in M at all, and he was being a jerk to her.
Yeah, you're right.
But I also think in the original version, or at least the version that we started the movie off with, he told a story to the group of friends, and he told a story that had to do with his ex, who was also part of the group of friends at the dinner party. So it made things super awkward, and I just think that was stupid of you. But also in terms of survival in all of the different timelines, he was kind of the guy that would be like, I'm trying to figure this out and I'm going to be like a savior. Maybe all of the guys were like that.
Yeah. So
he was just being like the stereotypical dude.
Add on, yeah.
He was fine, I guess. I didn't particularly like him, but I didn't like any of the men. Anyway.
Mike. So Mike is funny because I keep calling him Xander because he's from Buffy.
Yeah.
It was the actor from Buffy. He was funny because he didn't give a shit about his mouth. He would say whatever the fuck
Very
he felt.
unhinged.
He would embarrass people. He would embarrass himself. I think he was a drunk or recovering drunk, but he didn't care. But it was like he knew what he was. He was self-aware of what he was doing. He was like, "Oh, I'm doing something wrong," or he'd be like, "I'm gonna go fight this guy." Like, you couldn't stop him. When they tried to stop him, he still went and did whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
But he's also a dickhead too, because remember, he cheated on his wife.
Yeah.
So I'm just like,
we have another set of characters that are just super problematic.
Yeah. So he did cheat on his wife, but then his wife, like, I don't want to.
He cheated on his wife with one of his friend's wife.
Yeah, and she's there at the party too.
Do you like him though? I think you like him.
I did like him. Yeah. I in the beginning when I was watching the movie, I was like, this guy is me, because I would do the same thing. I'd be unhinged and everything. But then when I found out he cheated on his wife, I was like, nah. That kind of went out the window.
He's funny. He's definitely the comedic relief here. And I like that he was unhinged in the beginning because he would tell it to you straight. And I like that. And I actually liked the version of him where he gets unhinged and he's like slightly drunk, because he's still paying attention.
Yeah.
As opposed to some of the other characters who are just losing their minds and they're just going to like wallow in their, insanity. He was like, he still was paying attention despite him acting unhinged.
Yeah, he was like the second main. I would feel like he's the second main character.
He was definitely paying attention.
Yeah, he was paying attention to everything. He was helping her. He was doing everything.
Yeah, you're right. He was helping the plot move along, which was great. Except the fact that he was unhinged comes from like an area where he's prideful. So he did a lot of things out of pride, which was really annoying. So like he would do a lot of things and it was problematic. And when people called him out on it, he would just be like, well, that's the kind of guy I am. I'm going to prevail. I'm going to be the one on top. And he was just prideful and annoying in that way. So there was parts of him that I did like, but parts of him that were very assholey. Again, all the guys are assholes, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, when we were watching the movie, we were like, is that me? Is that you? He has some parts of me. He even knew that he fucked up. He was like, he would sit down and he'd be like, yeah, I fucked up. Like, he knew.
He was self-aware.
Yeah, he knew everything that he was doing.
Totally.
He would do it still and then be like, yeah, I fucked up. Now let's talk about Beth. Beth is supposed to be like that hippie.
If you could say that.
Yeah,
I don't
that
think
hippie
she's like
old,
that stereotype.
Like she's older. She's definitely older because I'm not going to say because she has the gray hair, but you can see that she's older. But she's like
She
the
seems
older,
older,
yeah,
yeah.
the older one in the friend group.
She's very
Astrology signs,
spiritual.
the spiritual, yeah. But she stayed in the house too.
She
right?
did.
She always stayed in the house. She
was
never
of-
got out of the house, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing that she stayed in the house because then she didn't mess up her reality.
She did some funny stuff in the
Except
beginning.
except the ketamine.
She's the one that brings drugs to the party. Not hard drugs. It's very like, I don't even know
Hallucinogens.
how to even explain these kinds of drugs that she brought. She brought like watered down gentrified version of drugs.
Yeah.
Like what the heck? She had like drugs with like passion flower and shit, and then ketamine,
Yeah.
and it was all in this blend. It was like very strange, but I liked her. I feel like it's a pattern with me. I like the spiritual people.
Yeah.
But she seems chill. I feel like she's another one of those characters that try to understand you on a deeper level as opposed to jumping the gun and just like judging people or
Yeah, that's what.
making people feel bad and stuff like that. Even though she did not like one character very strongly and she made it clear, she was still like on a deeper level, like, let's calm down, let me check in on my friends, let me make sure that they're okay while I'm also freaking out. So I like her, and I like the fact that she's one of the characters that stays in the house and doesn't fuck around, because that is how you guarantee survival. Don't leave the house. Why are you leaving the house?
Yeah.
So I like that about her. She's one of my top characters.
Just like Lee. Lee is one of the top characters too. Lee is Mike's wife.
Yes.
And when you first see her, you're like, she's like mad chill.
Very chill.
She listens to whatever Mike says. And she's like, I think she was a cool person. The only thing that wasn't cool is that when it was like at a big situation like this, she was just like, no, she doesn't want to deal with it. That's why she went to sleep in the.
Yeah. She was. You could see that she gets stressed out easily, so she was like, I'm just going to take myself out of the situation, which, again, was to her benefit because nothing really happened to her.
If you don't do anything, then nothing happens.
I'm telling you, that's all you got to do. But, of course, that's not how the movies work, right? But she stays inside. She's the second character that does not leave the house. She's very chill. I think she's just, like, go with the flow kind of a person. So there's not really much to say about her other than the fact that she stays inside and she's one of those.
And now Hugh is Beth's husband. He's a lawyer. Well, he was acting like that lead male character, like, oh, let's go do this, And I mean, comes out in a good thing because his brother has a book and it explains about the Comet.
Yeah.
So you get to learn more.
Yeah.
He fucked up too because he left the house.
He's like the first one to leave.
Yeah, him and Amir, but yeah.
It sucks because he out of all of the men, he's the least problematic man there. It's just that he's one of those go-getter type of guys where he's like, I'm gonna figure this out, don't worry about it, once I figure it out we can all calm down. So he's kind of like that savior type of dude, which is to his downfall because he is the one that kickstarts all of the different versions kind of crossing paths because he decides to leave the house. Why would you leave the house? That's the dumbest thing that you can do. But pride, of course, pride and men and whatever. And you're right, he definitely does have like that established vibe. And then he is the link to the root of the story, right? So he drives the story in that we figure out what exactly is going on with the quantum physics and the decoherence. Like he explains eventually what's actually going on, and that's how you figure out the rest of the movie. So he does play an important role. It's just that it's annoying because he's not that terrible of a guy. He's just, you should have just stayed in the house is all. And everything would have been okay.
I think he acts like that because he's a lawyer. So
he wants to be like the lead.
Yeah, like, oh, if this happens, there's a reason for this. Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to be the problem solver. He wanted to be like, I got this, kind of. Amir, who we find out is the actual co-writer of the movie.
Yeah, it was interesting to just add him in there. He starts dating Kevin's ex,
Yeah.
which comes into the friends group. But when the movie started, it doesn't even look like Laurie was supposed to be there. He invited her.
He invited her as a +1.
As a +1, and he's like, and everybody's like +1. We didn't say anything about +1.
Yeah, so he unintentionally brought her into this mess.
So she wasn't even gonna be in this party.
Yeah, but how do you feel about Amir?
In the beginning, I was like, he's a dickhead because he's dating this guy's ex. Why would you do that? That's against a friend code. I'm like, you couldn't find anybody else.
And Mike calls him out on it.
Yeah, and I mean, if it does happen in real life, like stuff like this happens, or somebody goes out with somebody, but then to bring them in, I guess he wanted to bring her in so that she could all be in the friends group. Because I mean, she was kind of cool in the movie. He's also like Hugh. He's trying to be level-headed also. I mean, he was kind of smart too. He knew what was going on. He was helping Hugh with what was going on. So I guess he was I liked him. He was a good character.
Yeah. I did not like Amir. I thought he was super, super annoying from the moment that they said that he was dating Kevin's ex. Like, exactly what you said. Why would you do that? But also, he walks into the house completely unbothered by the fact that he knows what he's doing. You know what you're doing, bringing the ex here. You're causing drama. You could have definitely not invited her to this one. She could have sat this one out. But you were so unbothered by it. And then he continues to have that unbothered vibe the entire movie. He's just like, I'm not really bothered by this. Even though everybody else is freaking out, I'm going to pretend like I have my chill. And I'm going to be the problem solver. I'm going to be like the superstar kind of guy. And it makes sense now when I read the trivia at the fact that he's actually the co-writer. So he's helping everybody along with their improvisation. It makes sense now. So I don't hate him as much knowing that, but he really he tunes into that character really well, because to a point where I'm like, okay, calm down. You don't control everybody. You don't have to act like you're like the star of the show here. So I did not like him.
Did he act like the star of the show? He kind of did, because
I think he felt like he was. Everybody revolved around him. Even if he wasn't the main character, we all knew that like M was the main character. The way that his vibe was kind of like that.
But he did really good. If that was his first acting thing, he did really good.
Yeah.
Because I was like, great. This guy, I had no idea that he wrote the movie.
It's spot on, actually.
I thought he was just a dick.
Yeah, and now it makes so much sense. Yeah. So he did a great job as a co-writer and an actor there. I did not like him. Lastly is Laurie.
Laurie was a dumbass too, because
Laurie is Amir's now girlfriend, who was also Kevin's girlfriend, and she's the ex basically that he brought.
I mean, she at the same time she was level-headed in the beginning. She didn't show that she was like, stupid. She knew what she was doing. It was, why the fuck are you there when you're when you used to go out with Kevin? And she did act like a bitch in the beginning too. When she was like shitting on Emily. Like you could see there was some kind of tension going on with Emily and her.
Yeah, they're definitely set to hate each other because of the fact that they both dated the same person.
Yeah,
I don't like Laurie.
Jealousy. Yeah, I didn't like her either. She did stupid shit in there too.
I don't like her. I think, of course, it's already set up before she even arrives that she's gonna be the outcast. So you kind of have this feeling like you're not gonna like her anyway. But once she gets in, and maybe you wanna give her a bit of redemption, like, oh, maybe she's nice, it'll be fine. And she kind of starts off by being nice. She's making conversation with everybody, but then she gets judgmental really quick, and she starts making comments that maybe you should chill, because you don't know these people that well. You're already the outcast. Calm down a little bit. So and then she also revels in the fact that Kevin brings up a story about the two of them back when they were dating, and she kind of loves that. So I didn't like that vibe. It gave her like Mean Girls vibe. Yeah. And it just perpetuated her hate relationship with M, which we are kind of like set up to like M because she's the main character. So she's always the outcast in the situation. And then it just gets worse when we see different versions of her where she tries to get with Kevin, her ex, which makes her look like even more of a shitty person. She also doesn't get along with Beth. And I like Beth. So I already didn't like her. So there was just so many reasons for me to not like her. And then she was also kind of like pushy. I don't know. Being the outcast, maybe you wouldn't want to be so annoying, but she was annoying.
They were kind of attacking her, and she was just like, like, get off of me or whatever.
Yeah, like.
But then at the same time, you saw like when she was like, Beth's nose was bleeding and it fell on top of her. She started taking off her clothes, and who was there? Kevin was there trying to help her. He's like, no, like leave that to Amir. Leave
she was intense.
She was throwing herself on everybody.
She was a lot. It was like, you can chill a little bit. Maybe take some notes from Lee. Lee was chill as fuck.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. She wasn't my favorite. What happened at the end? What happened? Does it make sense to you? Should we kind of explain what happens at the end?
All right, I'll say my take first. So at the end, M tries to kill herself, a version of herself that she's trying to like take over so that she could be in this reality. She and Kevin were together and really happy. And I think in that scene also she was saying that she was going to go with him to Vietnam. So they were all happy because she couldn't, all she had to do was say that she's going to go with him and she would have made that reality. But she saw that it was a happy reality. She's like, she's going to stay here.
I think the damage had already been done in the other.
But the thing is, she didn't have the guts to kill this one. She would just hit her with a toy.
She tried.
Yeah, she tried. And then I think she fainted at the end too. Kevin meets her up in the daytime. Her alternate reality person calls Kevin. So what happens in the end? They just look at each other. And that's why they need to make a part 2.
I don't agree with you with the part 2.
Okay, so
I feel like I like things ending off in a mystery and then we just leave it at that. I think that's what makes it like stick with you for a long time. She is standing in front of Kevin, this one that kind of like upended everything and was like, I'm just gonna pick this version. The comet has passed already. So as a viewer, I'm assuming, oh, the comet's passed. Everybody gets reset to 1. And it's gonna happen in this one version. It's gonna be one person. But for some reason, it's implied that there's 2 M's. And it's the 2 M's, the one that was supposed to be in that version, and then the one that tried to steal that version as in that timeline, that life. So I'm so confused as to how that could be. How could you have 2? If the theory is that after the comet passes, everything goes back to coherence, how is it that there's 2 versions? How could that be? Is it like a blip in the formula? Is that what happened? Maybe that's why they ended it off that way, because you can't really explain it. So they just were like, cut, that's it. That's the end of the movie.
And
just leave it at
horror.
that.
That's the fucking horror of the movie that you're like, oh shit,
part.
What's going to happen now?
What's now?
It's not like this one was a cold-blooded killer. What's going to happen now is
she kind of almost became one.
There's going to be 2 of them. Like I've actually had like nightmares thinking about this. Like, oh, I didn't get the ending that I wanted. I was like, oh, what's gonna happen? Are both of them gonna live together? Or are they gonna be friends?
Wow, you thought ahead.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's other movies like this back in since the beginning of the time of movies.
That is the mystery of it, and that's what makes it super, super intriguing by the end of it. I'm sure if you watch this movie, your jaw is going to be on the ground at the end of it. So if you were in this situation, would you try to manipulate the alternate realities? Would you try to manipulate yourself and others? Or would you kind of just stay back and keep it safe?
And watch what's happening. Yeah.
Let us know on social media at liveralonepod on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We would love to know. And thank you so much for listening. If you like today's episode and you want to hear more from us, do us a favor, leave us a rating, or just hit subscribe. And in next week's episode, tune in, because I cannot believe it. We are wrapping up our very first season of the Liver Alone podcast. So rather than one piece of content to discuss, we're actually just going to be chatting with each other, very casual. We're going to be talking about a bunch of things like Ian emailing a serial killer, my tweet exchange with the Stu Mocker, Matthew Lillard, so many things and so much more. So don't miss out on our celebratory finale. But for now,
we'll see you in the kitchen with a knife.